morning, everybody. We're holding here Ayin Tet Amud Bet 79b. This shiur is the Idu Nishmat Rachel Bat Chana, our beloved Amnon's mother-in-law. May the neshama have an aliyah, and may the family have a nechama.
Amen.
Amen.
79b where?
Top line. Okay, David, you ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. Also, we'd like to thank Hashem. See, it's her zchut. She was a tzaddiket. That we are back here in the Beit HaKnesset, and B'ezrat Hashem, we should all be back here. You know, all of us together very soon.
Right.
Klaf, kedei lichtov alav parasha ktana. If someone carries out a klaf, parchment, how much parchment? By the way, this is all very applicable. This is right. This is how much parchment can you not carry out midoraita on Shabbat? Okay. So anything that's significant in its realm, in its world, that is the shiur. So the Gemara wants to know what it is. So the Mishnah said, "K'dei lichtov alav parasha ktana," large enough to be able to write the small parasha in the tefillin of Sharosh, because we know that in the tefillin Sharosh there are 4 compartments. Each parasha is not written like in the Shalyad on one long piece, all 4 parashiyot, Shema v'Hayim Shema v'Kadshvim. But rather in the tefillin Sharosh there are 4 separate compartments, and each compartment gets its own parasha. What is the smallest one from all the 4? The first one, Shema until with V'ahavta until Uvi Sharecha. That's shorter than V'haya, that's shorter than Kaddish, shorter than V'hayaki V'yacha. So therefore, since it's the shortest and it's significant because you can write a whole parasha of Tefillin, so as long as it's the size that can fit, that you have. That's the Gemara. V'riminu klaf v'duchsustus k'dei lichtov alav mezuzah. It says here that a klaf and a duchsustus. Now, what is duchsustus? We're going to talk a lot about klaf and duchsustus, so we have to be very clear. Okay, look. When you skin an animal and you work the hide is called a gvil. Gvila, maybe you heard of that word. Okay. Then, you take that gvil and you cut it in the middle. You cut it through the middle. Okay? The part, according to Rashi and most Rishonim, the Rambam learns the opposite. And we'll have to explain Rashi Shita with the Braita that's coming up later on. But according to Rashi, so you take, this is the gvil, and now you slice it through the middle, so now you have 2 parts. Okay? So the part that was closer to the animal's flesh, the one that was actually, is the duchsustus. And the other part is called the klaf. Fine? Okay.
So the more inner part is the cloth.
The inner part
Behind the couscous, whatever you call it.
the part that was touched, the duchsustus, yeah. So
It's behind the... Behind it.
the klaf is the part that you could see.
You said it's closer to the skin. The skin is the outer part. Isn't the skin...
This is the skin.
Okay.
This
Just like skin in the middle.
You take off the skin and then you slice it through the middle.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
This is the skin. This is the hide of the animal itself. That's called gvil. You slice it down the middle.
It's
Okay?
really thin, no?
Yeah. So the part it's not so thin, the hide of an animal. But you see it, yeah. Anyways, what does it look like? It looks like a paper almost. It's a little bit thicker than a paper. So 2 of those. All right. So the part that's closer to the part that has the hair growing out of it is the klaf. The part that's next to the flesh of the animal is the duchsustus. Okay? So now it says, klaf v'duchsustus. This braita is referring to someone carrying on Shabbat. So if you carry these 2 on Shabbat, what is the shir? Kedei lichtov alav mezuzah. For both of them, it says it has to be the amount that you write A mezuzah. Now, what's included in a mezuzah? 2 parashiot. Shema Yisrael Tilu V'Yisharach, and then V'Hayim Shemoah. So how could the Mishnah here say that a klaf is already significant? Because you could write the small parasha of Tefillin. If we have a braita that says that a klaf or a duchsustus, the amount is 2 parashiot. Because it says mezuzah. So the Gemara says, no, my mezuzah shabbat Tefillin. You know what mezuzah means? It doesn't mean a mezuzah on your doorpost. It means a mezuzah, a parasha that's rolled up, that goes into your tefillin. Mezuzah is not referring to the mitzvah of mezuzah on your doorpost, which has 2 parashiyot. It's referring to a parchment that you roll up with 1 parasha and you put it into the tefillin shabirosh. Okay? So the Gemara says, "V'kari lehu l'tefillin mezuzah." Is that really an answer? You're telling me that the parasha you put into the tefillin is called mezuzah? That's called parasha tefillin, not called mezuzah. Someone says, "And yes, they are timely because we learned such a language in reference to tefillin in a braita." It says there, listen to this braita. It's referring to something else. This braita. Ritzuot tefillin, ima tefillin, mitamot etayadayim. The straps of the tefillin, when they're attached to the tefillin, mitamot etayadayim. We know that we learned that in Shabbat. Shabbat is, we learned that Tzvarim, if you remember all the way back, Daf Yud Chet, all the Tzvarim, since they would hide them, they would hide Terumah together with the Tzvarim, 2 holy things together, take the Terumah, it's holy, put it next to the Tzvarim. So what happened was, the mice came and they found the food. And while they were at it, the rats and the mice, they ate through the Tzvarim. So the Chachamim said, you know what? If you touch Svarim, you're Tameh. Okay, so nobody wanted to put the Terumah near the Svarim anymore. And that way they preserved the Svarim. So what's included in Svarim is the Tefillin themselves. What about the straps? Will the straps make you Tameh as well? Is that part of the Gzerah? So the Braita says, if the straps are attached to the tefillin mitamot etayadayim, it makes your hands tameh. B'fnei atzman, but if they're by themselves, ein mitamot etayadayim. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Amar Mishum Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Shimon, Hanogeh b'ritzua tahor ad she'agia b'ktzitza. Even if the ritzua is attached to the bayit is the actual tefillin. It wasn't part of the gzerah until you actually touch the ketzitza, which is the bayit, the house that houses the tefillin inside. Rabbi Zakkai Mishmo Omer tahor. Listen to this word. The strap is tahor ad sheyiga b'mezuzah atzma, until it touches. You can even touch the bayit. If you go over to your tefillin and you touch them, your hands are not tameh. That's not included in the gzerah. You have to touch the sefer itself, the parchment itself. And what does he call it? Till you touch the mezuzah. You're talking about tefillin. What's he talking about mezuzah? So you see that the parashiyot inside your tefillin are also called, in this braita, mezuzah. How do you like that? So okay. So now, let's just recap for half a second. It's one and the same. The shiur for tefillin, the klaf is to write 1 parasha, the smallest parasha of tefillin, and that's called mezuzah. So the Gemara asks, the end of that braita actually says what our Mishnah says. The beginning of the braita says, klaf and duchsustus, large enough to write a mezuzah. We're trying to say mezuzah means the smallest parasha of tefillin. But the problem is that the end of that braita says that language. He uses that language. It says klaf kedei to write the small parasha of tefillin, which infers that at the beginning of the braita, when it didn't use that language, when it said mezuzah, it was referring to something else. So the Gemara is saying that you see from here that mezuzah does not mean what you thought it meant. So the Gemara says, no, it does. Hachi katani, klaf v'duchsustus shi'urim bekama. Duchsustus kedei lichtov alav mezuzah. Klaf kedei lichtov alav parasha ketana shebetfilin shishma Yisrael. So the Gemara is changing around. And the Gemara is like this. If you take out the duchsustus, okay, and I'll explain you why in a second. So we're changing the halakha a little bit. The duchsustus needs a mezuzah. And you know what mezuzah means? Not the answer that we said before, the mezuzah in the tefillin. Even though we found such a language in the Bright over there that he said that. No. It means mezuzah, whatever you write in your mezuzah. What are you writing in mezuzah? 2 parshiyot. So if you take the inner part of the hide, it has to be large enough to write a whole mezuzah on your doorpost. You know why? Because mezuzah, duchsustus, are generally used for mezuzot, not for tefillin. We're going to learn about that right now. So therefore, you have to be larger than the klaf. The klaf, which is used for the tefillin. So in your tefillin shorosh, you have right now a piece of parchment klaf that has one little small parasha. So therefore, even if it's small and if it's that parasha, therefore you'll be chayav. Okay? Omar Rav. Now Rav says,
Rabbi said the Duchsustus is 2.
Duchsustus is 2, klaf is 1.
Klaf is 1.
Klaf is more stringent. Why? Not because there's anything great about it, because you write tefillin on it. So therefore, that's already its significance. But the duchsustus we don't. Do we not at all? Can we not? Or it's just not normal?
That was my question.
Good. Next question. So the Gemara says now, Omar Rav, the greatest Amoira. Rav says, which almost all the teachers Amorim usually can be traced back many times to Rav, Duchsustus harehu keklaf. Duchsustus is like klaf. So the Gemara explains what he means. At least at this point, the Gemara thinks he means Mar klaf kotvin alav tefillin, af duchsustus kotvin alav tefillin. Just like klaf, you can write tefillin on it. You can write tefillin on duchsustus too. So the Gemara says, Tanan, the Mishnah said, klaf kedei lichtov alav parasha ketana shebetfilin, sheyishma Yisrael, klaf duchsustus lo. You're telling me that you could write a parasha of tefillin only on klaf. And klaf, it sounds like in the Mishnah that only klaf gets that amount. But according to Rav, that you can write tefillin on a duchsustus. Let that be the shi'ur, the measurement for a duchsustus as well. So the Gemara says, lemitzvah. Okay? So the Gemara says like this. Whenever the Gemara says lemitzvah, it means the proper way to do the mitzvah. The proper way to do the mitzvah is not to write tefillin on duchsustus. Write it on the better one, write it on the klaf. Therefore, since generally the duchsustus is not used for tefillin, therefore, in order to be chayav, is to write a whole mezuzah, both parashiyot. But in strict halacha, if someone writes their tefillin on duchsustus, kosher. That's what Rav is trying to teach. It's kosher, but it won't affect the halachot of Shabbat. The fact that you're kosher doesn't mean that that's the shiur for Shabbat. The shiur for Shabbat is what's the norm. The norm. Toshima. The Gemara has another question on Rav. The following Braita says as follows. Halacha Moshe Sinai tefillin ala klaf umezuzah ala duchsustus. Halacha Moshe Sinai tefillin is written on klaf and mezuzah is written on duchsustus. It says the Braita, klaf is what? Bimkom basar, duchsustus bimkom se'ar. So that's a little bit of a problem, the way I explained it before. Because over here it sounds like klaf is the place of the flesh, and duchsustus is the place of the hair. Before, we explained according to Rashi and most Rishonim in the opposite. So what the Rishonim say it means over here is like this. That, of course, no, klaf is the place, is the outer place where the hair grows out of. But when it says that klaf is in the place of the flesh, it means which side should you write on?
Inside.
On the place closer to the flesh, on the klaf, and the inside. And which part should you write on the mezuzah when you write a duchsustus? On the part closer to the hair, which is the inside. And basically, what it's telling you is you have this piece of, let's say this is the flesh of the animal. Okay? So now you have the hide. Now you take off the hide and you cut it through the middle, you slice it. So this is the klaf, this is the duchsustus. The duchsustus, you're going to write in mezuzah, write it b'makom seyar, the part that's closer to the seyar, which is the inside. And the klaf, right on the inside as well. Why? Because since it's in the cut, that's the smoothest part. Therefore, both of them should be written on the inside where you cut. Okay? Fine. But what we're trying to extract from this Braita is that the Braita seems to say clearly, Halacha Moshe Misinai, Tefillin are on the klaf, mezuzah on the chsustus. But Rav was saying that you could write tefillin on the chsustus as well. That doesn't seem right, says the Gemara. So the Gemara says the mitzvah. The Halacha Moshe Misinai is telling you the proper mitzvah, the best way. So the Gemara says, Tanya Shina Pasul. But there's a Braita that says if you change it around, it's Pasul. A mezuzah. It's going on mezuzah, which means mezuzah can't be written on klaf. That is where if you change, you can't write it on klaf. But tefillin should be written on klaf. That's the best way, but it can be written on duchsustus. But again, in Hilchot Shabbat, the fact that it can be written won't really affect the Hilchot Shabbat. That won't play a role. What's relevant is what's norm. So since the norm is a klaf, therefore a klaf has to have just the shiur of one pasha of tefillin. Tuchsustus, which is the norm, is mezuzah, gets two pashut. So the Gemara says, "Vatanya shina bezeh bezeh pasul." But then the other Braita says that if you change around both of them, either one, it's pasul. Which sounds like if you write tefillin on a duchsustus, it will be pasul, not like Rav. So the Gemara says, "Idi v'idi amezuzah." You could say they're both going on mezuzah, which means if you change either or in mezuzah, meaning if you wrote it on the wrong side, either that you changed it and you wrote the mezuzah on the klaf, or you wrote it on the duchsustus, but you wrote it on the wrong side of the duchsustus. You wrote it on the side that was actually touching the flesh. That part is not kasher if you change it around for mezuzah. But it's not referring to changing tefillin. Okay, inam duchsustus bimkom basar. That's the other one. Okay, either you wrote the klaf in the place of the seyar, or on the duchsustus bimkom basar. Okay.
So you wrote the duchsustus on the bottom part of the cloth. That's not a kosher mezuzah, right? The one that's facing in the normal place where you put it on. And if you put it on the bottom part of the duchsustus, is also not kosher.
Right.
That's what it's trying to teach you.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Now, if you only want to figure out the kabbalistic reasons why, I'd love to know that.
Yeah.
For both, what's the rationale for both? That's your homework, Rabbi.
According to this pshat, it could be that you could write a mezuzah on the klaf, but as long as you don't write it on the wrong side. Okay, the Ibayitem, another teretz is Shina Bezeh Bezeh Tanoihi. It's actually a machloket Tanoi, and Rav takes one side. The Tanya, because we learned in the Braita, Shina Bezeh Bezeh Pasul. If you change either or by tefillin or mezuzah, meaning whether you wrote a mezuzah on klaf or whether you wrote a tefillin on duchsustus, pasul. Rabbi Acha machshir. Rabbi Acha says kasher. Mishum Rabbi Achi bar Chanina va'amri lo mishum Rabbi Yaakov bar Rabbi Chanina. He says it in the name of either one of those two Tanaim. So we see here that Rav is taking Rabbi Acha's opinion. So you see, and he's saying it's kasher if you change it around. Now, but changing it around would be only, Rav understands, Rabbi Acha, only by mezuzah. By tefillin, you don't have, by tefillin, you don't have that choice by mezuzah. By mezuzah, you must write it on the chsustus, not on cloth. Rav Papa Omer, Rav the Omer Katana de Menashe. Another answer is Rav Papa's. He says, Rav said it, held like the Tana in the Beit Midrash of Menashe. The Tana de Menashe, because the Braita was taught in the Beit Midrash of Menashe, Katva al aniyar ve'ala matnit psula. If you wrote it, now it doesn't say what the it is. We're going to soon see what it's talking about. Either it's talking about tefillin, mezuzot, or sefer Torah. If you wrote it al aniyar ve'ala matlit, on a piece of paper made, what was paper made out of in those days? Herb, like grasses. Ve'ala matlit, or on a piece of cloth, psula. Ala klaf ve'ala gvil ve'al duchsustus kshera. But if you wrote it on parchment, or gvil, which means gvil is the thick hide without splitting it, without cutting it through, or duchsustus, it's kshera. Now, katva mai, what did you write over here? Ilei mezuzah klaf mikatvina. If you talk about a mezuzah, you can't write a mezuzah on klaf. Okay? Because we learned already in the Braita, it says shina pasul. If you change it around, it's pasul. Elalav, so it must be talking about tefillin. So that, and you see from here, that tefillin are kasher when they're written on duchsustus. So Rav actually found the Tana that went like him. So the Gemara says, what? Tefillin agvil mikatvinan. So you really think this is talking about tefillin? You're so satisfied and you found the Braita like Rav? But the Braita also says for the same price you can write it, and you're saying it refers to tefillin. On gvil, gvil means the hide without being parted at all into two. The Gemara feels that that's for sure not good. So the Gemara says, Elakitan yahi b'sefer Torah. This leniency, this lenient Braita of Tana Devei Menashe is not referring to tefillin either. You can't bring it as a proof to Rav. Because it's referring to something which has more leniencies than tefillin and mezuzah, and that's a Sefer Torah. The Sefer Torah can be written on all these things. Lema Misayel, let us say that the following Braita is a proof to Rav. Because it says...
I'm sorry, they're trying to write, so basically they're trying to figure out what does wrote it mean, and now they're saying...
The it is referring to a Sefer Torah, and therefore you can't glean anything off that Braita for tefillin.
Right.
Okay? Now, the tefillin of the yad, okay, you cannot make into tefillin you could make into tefillin into sharosh. Let's say I had tefillin shayad. Now I want to change them around. I want to take the tefillin and change that box and make it now into tefillin sharosh. You could do that because you're going up into kedusha. Okay. What about the opposite? You can't, because you can't go from a higher kedusha to a lower kedusha. And then the Braita says as follows: Ki yotzebo. Similarly, another halacha. And this is very important. This halacha for us right now. Tefillin shebalu. Let's say you have parshiyot. They're hundreds of years old, and they're all worn out, and you can't read it. But they're tefillin. Okay? The Sefer Torah Shebala eno sim mehem mezuzah. You can't say, okay, well, I need to write a mezuzah. I have some old parchment. I think there was a Sefer Torah written on it once. Or there was tefillin. Since Sefer Torah and tefillin have more sanctity, you can't lower this piece of parchment, which once had higher sanctity, to become a mezuzah, which has lower sanctity. Ein moridin mikdusha chamura lekdusha kala. Now let it go down from a stringent kedusha to a light one. Okay? Now, otherwise, what would you say? Otherwise, let's say you're allowed to do this, then you would. And so the Gemara's inferences says the Gemara, Tama de Emoridin, Hamaridin oisin. It sounds like because you're not allowed to lower its kedusha. But however, if you would have been allowed to, had you been allowed to, you would. The chtiva amai, it says the Gemara, what would it be? What was it written on? Lav the chtiva duchsustus wasn't written on duchsustus. Because we already said that you're not allowed to write a mezuzah on a cloth. So if you have a plan to take this parchment of tefillin and create a mezuzah, and the only reason why you're not allowed to is because you're not allowed to lower the kedusha. Otherwise you would be. That means obviously we're talking about tefillin that were written on the duchsustus. Because otherwise you can't use it. So the Gemara says this is a proof to Rav that you may write tefillin on duchsustus.
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah. It says here that you have worn out, right? You can't see, it's all worn out. So he says, okay, don't make a mezuzah out of it, because it was once tefillin or sefer Torah. But let's concentrate on the tefillin case. Otherwise, if there was no issue with lowering the kedusha, you could use this for a mezuzah. 1 second. What is this? If this is a klaf, then why do you have to tell me the reason is because you can't lower the kedusha? You can't do it anyways because you can't write a mezuzah on klaf.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's the right material for the mezuzah. What is it? A duchsustus. Aha! Why were tefillin written on a duchsustus? Why are they worn out tefillin? You see, like Rav, that you're allowed to write tefillin on duchsustus, and the only reason why you're not allowed to now use it for mezuzah is because you're lowering the kedusha. But everything until this point was perfect. The tefillin were good, and they were written on the duchsustus. So we see a support for Rav's opinion that you may write tefillin on a duchsustus. The Gemara says, "Lo, t'chsiv ala klaf." The story there is written on klaf. So the Gemara says, "Umezuzah klaf mikatvinan." So why do you have to come out to a new reason that you're lowering the kedusha? You can't write a mezuzah on klaf. The Gemara says, "En v'tanya ksav ala klaf ala niyah ve'almatzas psula." The Gemara says, "Yes, you could." Now the Gemara is changing their mind. Even a mezuzah you could write on klaf. And the story of there was that tefillin were written on klaf, and you want to use it for mezuzah. And the Gemara is positing now that it's possible that tefillin you can't write on duchsustus, but mezuzah you can write on both. So the Gemara says, "What do you?" Says the Gemara, "V'atanya," and we actually learned katva ala klaf ala niyah ve'almat psula. Amar Reb Shimon Lazar Meira yakotva ala klaf b'tei shemishtameret. That Rameir actually said you could write the mezuzah on klaf because it's protected better. It's stronger than duchsustus. Okay? And it rolls better according to some Rishonim. So therefore, the Gemara is actually changing its mind and saying like this, that a mezuzah can be written on both, and tefillin can only be written on the cloth. Okay? There's no proof to Rav. So the Gemara says, Hashda atid lahachi, now that you came so far to say that there's a Tana that holds that you're allowed to write mezuzah on cloth, at least one Tana, Rameir, not everybody. So then the Rav Nami lo yiteme duchsustus harei klaf, ela ema klaf harei duchsustus. Ma duchsustus kosin alav mezuzah, av klaf kosin alav mezuzah. So then you could already interpret the entire Rav when he said duchsustus is like klaf. What he meant to say was really, what he was really saying was klaf is like duchsustus, which means just like I can write a mezuzah on a duchsustus, so too I can write mezuzah on klaf. He was never referring to tefillin. Tefillin maybe needs klaf. Gemara's like, now I'm made a 180 now. Changing their minds. Okay? And all Rav said was that he equated the two, klaf and duchsustus. He didn't say which way. The Gemara thought the whole time it meant for tefillin, that you could also write it on duchsustus. Now the Gemara is saying, no, it's referring to mezuzah. You can also write a mezuzah on klaf because Rav was going with Rabbi Meir's opinion, which was his Rebbe's Rebbe. Rav learned by Rebbe, and Rebbe learned by Rabbi Meir. Rebbe learned by many people. But one of the Rabbeim of Rebbe was Rabbi Meir, and Rav follows his opinion that you can write mezuzah on both. little bit of a... Okay. New topic, yomi. Ink. Okay, David, you ready? How much ink is if a person carries out ink on Shabbat, how much ink is considered significant amount of ink that the person will be liable for punishment and to bring a korban chatat if he did it by mistake? So, the Mishnah said to write 2 letters. Tana, the writer wrote, Shtei otiyot b'dio, Shtei otiyot b'kulmas. Okay? If someone carries out enough ink to write 2 letters with dried ink, like the ink became like powder, it's chayav. Shtei otiyot b'kulmas, Shtei otiyot b'kalmarin. 2 letters on his, you know what the kulmas is? The what do they call it again? The scribe's pen. What do they call it? There's a name for it, no, in English? The quill. Quill. The quill. Yeah. So the quill, you carry out the quill, and on the quill, there's enough ink. You know, it's well inked. It's inked up, and there's enough ink on it to write 2 letters. Or shtei otiyot b'kalmarin. Isn't the quill where the ink is placed? What's the quill? The pen or the
pen?
The pen. Yeah, fine. Or b'kalmarin. What's the kalmarin?
Inkwell.
Yeah, the ink what?
That's the bottom part.
That's the bottom part. It's the part where the ink is placed into. They call it the well?
Yeah, inkwell.
In the inkwell. Okay. Anytime you carry out enough ink to enough diyo, I'm going to call it diyo for now, okay? It's the same word. It's easier to say. That has 2 letters, yichayav.
Question, but how are you carrying out this ink?
Rashi's kasha, kivaldi. You're carrying it out either, what are you asking? Either just the actual ink in your hands,
what's it in?
or on the quill, or in the inkwell. As long as there's enough diyo that can write 2 letters, you chayav.
But if you're already carrying an inkwell anyway.
Oh, that's what I thought you asked. Very good. As I frek Rashi, all the Rishonim asked the kasha. You're already carrying out the inkwell or the quill. The first case I understand, it just says the ink itself, so it's in your hand. But the second 2 cases, you're chayav already for that. The answer is you're not. Believe it or not. You ready? We're going to learn a Mishnah later on. Because since the only reason why you're carrying them out is to get your ink from here to there, you don't really want to carry those out at all. They're serving the ink. Therefore, you're not chayav for them.
How do you know that you can't use a quill to do for something specific? I can use it to scratch something or...
Yeah, you can use it to write also in the next house that you go to. But...
that makes no sense.
The point is like this. We're going to learn about a box later on with something in it. We're going to learn about all these cases. The Mishnah later on. Here, the quill, since it has ink on it, it's considered, it's not chashuv at all. Because what's chashuv about the quill is its ink. And what's chashuv about the inkwell is the ink.
So something that doesn't have any sort of purpose anymore you can carry. Intended purpose, based upon this. Because if you're going to tell me that means I can carry, I'm trying to think of something that's...
The truth is,
usage.
If you carry something that doesn't have any significance, you're patur. And that's why for the past bunch of days, all we're doing is figuring out the amount of each item of what is significant. You're right. You're 100% right. The Gemara said yesterday, if you pour out rotten, spoiled, old, smelly water. So the Gemara says, smelly water, berevit. You need a revit of water that you're chayav. So the Gemara said, a revit of the smelly water. What do you use smelly water for? Meaning, you should be patur, like you just said. So the Gemara said, no, you can make mortar out of it. They used to make mortar out of dirty water. Okay, so it has significance. But if you find something that doesn't, you're right, then you'll be patur. Now, there's something called subordinate. It becomes subordinate to its master. The quill and the inkwell become subordinate. They're not considered chashuv at all. Because what really makes them chashuv is the ink. That's why when they travel with their mother, so to speak, what makes them chashuv, they're insignificant. If you take out an inkwell by itself, it's empty, then you're chayav. Because then you're giving it significance. I need this. But when there's ink in there, they don't count. Okay, we're going to learn about this later on in the Mishnah. It's a whole sugya. Yeah.
So, for example, if I go on Shabbat and I have, you see your glasses you're wearing now, and I just take the side part of your glasses that broke. Let's just say that, not the glass part, but the side part, and it happens to be that it's in my pocket, and I'm walking with it. Not the glasses, just the side part. I'm patur.
No, you'd be chayav.
Why?
Because right now that it's not attached to anything, it's not subordinate to anything. It is usage for it.
What?
Oh, you mean because on Shabbat you can't use it for something? Because you can't fix it on Shabbat? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it cannot. Well, it can for sure. It can't be fixed on Shabbat. I'm thinking something random that.
No, but since normally it could be fixed, I mean, after Shabbat you'll be able to fix it.
Yes.
So it has chashivut.
And after Shabbat,
that's why you didn't. Why didn't you throw it in the garbage? Because you want to fix it after Shabbat, so it's important.
And a quilter could also after Shabbat put ink on it, and it's useful.
Yeah. So that what I'm saying is like this: the quill and the inkwell are very chashuv. They're amazing. You could write with it, and you could use the inkwell to hold ink, and that's why if you carry them out without any ink on them, here I'm saying something else. They become tafel, like secondary, like insignificant once they have their ink on them today.
Why?
Because since their purpose is for the ink, so the ink becomes like everything you're carrying. What you're carrying now is ink. Everything around it is just the thing that has the ink, that holds the ink, that's right with the ink. It's part of the ink. We don't view them as their own thing when there's ink on them. If there's no ink with them, then we have to view them as something chashuv because they have purpose. They have significance. They have usage. You can utilize them for things. But if they're being traveled with the ink, they're just part of the ink. And therefore we don't view them as anything. That's what I'm saying. You'll understand it better when we get to the Mishnah later on, Bezrat Hashem, in 13 days from now.
You could have a gold quill.
Oh, that will be different then. That will be different. That's not this case. This is a regular quill. Edechanami, 100%. That case will be different. Then it will become subordinate to the ink. In less than 2 weeks, we're going to be by that too. Okay, fine. So that's the answer. So now, Boyu Rava asked the question. You have about 12 minutes, or whatever. So maybe a little more. Let's
go.
What?
Write it down.
Let's write it down. Let's learn Torah. Let's go. Let's learn Torah, everybody. Boy, Rava asked, Ois achas b'dyoy, ot achat b'kulmas, ot achat b'kalmorin maho. If he carried out one letter of dried ink in his hand, and also one letter on the quill and one letter in the inkwell, can you now be mitzaref?
Together, you mean?
Together, enjoy them. Yeah. Enjoy them. Okay?
Take it.
Okay? Second.
Hoy está más.
So, okay, fine. So the Gemara says, take it. This is a very interesting question. Do you remember we once had a question all the way at the beginning of Shabbat? If you have a nut, a walnut floating in a cup of water, you pick up the walnut, you walk outside, you put it in Rishut HaRabim, you put it down. Are you chayav or not? So it's a shayla, it's a teku. They weren't sure why. Because in order to do the melacha of hotza'ah, you have to uproot something from where it is placed. Okay? and then you have to place it down, right? It has to be resting first in a domain. And then I uprooted it from there, and I put it down in a different domain. But it wasn't uprooted necessarily, because even though the cup was resting, but since the walnut was floating around, it was a question if that's considered, if you look at the walnut itself, or you look at the item that the walnut is in. Okay? The water that it's in is resting because it's in the cup, which is placed down. But maybe the walnut is not. So it's a shayla if you're chayav or not. Okay? However, over here, the Gemara is sure. Listen to what he does. He has ink. And he has enough ink in his hand that could write 2 otiyot. And he walks out of his home with the quill and the 2 ink. Okay? So the second he puts it down on the floor, that's the end of the malacha. He's going to be chayav. He doesn't put it down on the floor. You know what he does with the 2 inky letters that are smudged on the quill? While he's walking, he writes on a piece of paper on his hand 2 letters. Hi, or Shem, from Shimon. Right? Shem, he writes 2 letters. Aleph base. So therefore, the Gemara says, there, even though he hasn't stopped walking, and he never let the page stop, okay? Because he keeps walking, then he walks back in. So he never really stopped, but he did. Why? Because the writing of the ink is its stop. Why? Because it's never going to be removed from there. It's different than a walnut floating around in water, moving around. Right? Because the ink itself has reached its destination forever. Okay?
Why do you say about the part about the writing? Because you can't write anyways.
Yeah, but
it's a whole different ballgame.
You should be chayav for writing itself.
That's a separate thing.
That's a very, very good. That's an excellent point, and the Ritva says your point, and he says we want to know if he's chayav. He did everything inadvertently, by mistake. So for writing, he'll have to bring a chatat. Question: does he have to bring a second one for hotza'ah? Got it?
Yeah.
Very excellent point. So here, even though the person is walking with it, it's considered like the ink rested. Why? Why? The ink is on a paper which is not resting because the person's walking underneath the paper. He's holding it. And he keeps walking. He hasn't stopped. So the answer is yes, but the ink stopped. Because the ink has come to its place where it's never going to be moved. It's in the paper. And that's what he said. If a person carries out 1 letter of ink, okay, puts it down on the floor. You're not chayav, right? Because it's 1 letter. But then he does another time, another letter. By the way, he keeps writing it. He writes 1 letter, so len. Then he comes out, he writes another letter, patur. Because the 2 halves cannot be mitzaref. My time, at the time that he goes and he brings out the second one, the first one is already lacking its measurement. It's missing its measurement because it starts drying a little bit. So once you bring it out, which is like this, if you bring out a little bit of ink and you don't write it down on a page, let's say an inkwell that has enough ink for 1 letter, you bring it outside, put it down. Not the malacha, it's only 1 letter. Then you bring out another inkwell with another one, put it down on the floor, you're chayav. Because now what you did is, in one forgetting, you brought out 2 letters of ink. It's enough. But here that you wrote it down, so it was only 1 letter exactly. Once you write it down, it starts to dissipate. It starts to what's it called again? Vapor. It starts to evaporate. It starts to dry out a little bit. So now it's less than 1 letter. So by the time you bring out the second letter, it's joining to what? To 3/4 of a letter. So when you complete the malacha, you haven't now carried out two letters together. Got it? The first half of your malacha doesn't exist anymore. The first half of the malacha had to be half of the malacha. It had to be one whole letter. It's not one whole letter anymore. It started to dry because you wrote it out. You wrote Aleph. Now that Aleph, once you write it, it's now not anymore a whole letter. It's almost a whole letter. It's 99%. Now it's 98, 97. In a few minutes, it will be about 95%. Because 5% of the ink will... Then you go and you bring out the other one and you write it.
Okay, what are you writing on?
Piece of paper.
What about that piece of paper?
Paper was in the Rishut Rabbah. You're not carrying the paper. You just carried out the ink.
Oh, okay, you're not carrying the paper.
Just carry out the ink. So the Gemara is teaching you a new halacha. The first half of the malacha that you want to enjoin to the second half has to be kayam, has to be intact in existence. It's not here anymore, so you can't join it. Let's go back to the Omar Rabba Hoitzik Chatzi Gegeres Achas V'nicho V'chaz Hoitzik Chatzi Gegeres Achas V'nicho Yishoino Nasa K'misha Kolto Kelelik Shenisrifu Potter. We know how much food you have to take out to be chayav. We keep saying this. Grogeret.
I'm still having problems with the last one, but that's a good one.
Well?
I'm having complications from the last one. I'm not sold, but keep going.
That's all. The last one we'll talk about it later. But we know what it says, right?
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Fine. So now, what's the shiur for for food? Take out a cookie on Shabbat. How big does a cookie have to be? It has to be significant. Halacha l'Moshe Sinai has to be a dried fig. Let's say you take out the size of half a dried fig, put it down in the Rishut Rabin, and you go back to the house, take another half a dried fig. Rava says patur. Why patur? It doesn't evaporate. The first half is still there. It's a cookie. So the Gemara says patur. Why? Because it's as if a dog swallowed already, so it's not here the first half, just like by the case of the ink, or like it got burnt. So the Gemara says v'amai homancho. It's right there. It's lying right there. Nobody ate it. There's no dog that came, no fire. So the Gemara says hochi kamar. V'im kodam v'higbia rishoyna koydem anochas shniya nasis rishoyna k'misha niklata oshenisif. If he went ahead and picked up the first half of the dried fig from the place that he put it down before he put down the second half, then the first one is as if it was swallowed by a dog or burnt, meaning it's gone. Okay?
Repeat that.
Yeah. What would happen if a dog came by or a fire came by and burnt or ate the first half of the piece of the dried fig? Then the halacha would be that by the time you bring out the second half, it's not there, so it can't join to anything that's there. Therefore, you're patur. Okay? So he's saying, if you lift it up, here's the first half of the groger. I bring it out, I put it down, Rishut Rabim, and now I don't have a dog or a fire, but I lift it up. So this milacha of being placed is not happening anymore. And then I bring out the other half. So it's not joining to anything else that was placed down in Rishut Rabim, because it has to join to a shear that's placed down. There is nothing here. When I bring out the second half and I put it down, it's not joining to anything else that is resting in Rishut Rabim. Because this thing ain't resting anymore. It's already been lifted up. So it's just as good as if a dog ate it and it doesn't exist at all. And therefore you're upatur. Okay? You got it? Hoitzi. Chatzi gergeres v'inicha v'chaz v'hoitzi chatzi gergeres v'hadira derech aleh chayv. You put down half of fig, dried fig, and you put it, then you go back in, you bring out another half of grogret. V'hadira derech aleh chayv. And you pass it over the first one. You don't even put it down, you're chayav. So the Gemara says, V'amai haloi noch. What do you mean? If I put out half a fig, and then I bring out the other half of fig, and I just walk over it, you're already chayav. What do you mean? I didn't put it down. I didn't finish the malacha. So the Gemara says, which means I passed it over within 3 tfachim of the first one. So the halacha is anything within 3 tfachim of another thing is called lavud. It's like it's attached. It's like magnetic pull, puts them together. So therefore it's considered like it is already attached to the other one, and it's on the floor. So the Gemara says, "Va'omar Rava," but didn't Rava say "Toch shlasha l'Rabbanan tzarich hanacha gabi mashu"? Okay, according to the Rabbanan, you remember that Rabbi Kiva's opinion that when you have a ball flying through the Rishut Havim, so we said kluta k'misha huncha damya. If it's caught in the air, it's as if it's on the ground. The Rabbanan didn't go for that, but the Rabbanan said it's not like it's on the ground. So, and the Rabbanan even said that within 3 tvachim, tzarich hanacha gabi mashu. It has to be actually placed on the ground, and Rava said that. So they didn't go for this lavud and say that it's already placed on the ground. So the Gemara says, "Lekasha kam b'zayik kam b'maver." When you throw something, you're right, it has to actually land. But if you're passing it over, that's different. And since it's in your hand, and your hand is within 3 of the ground, whatever is in your hand is already considered placed on the ground. Okay? Now you may ask, if Rav is teaching you that when you pass something, look, I'm carrying this, and this is the floor of the Rishut Havim, just imagine. It's a table, let's imagine it's the floor. And I'm within 3, it's already on the ground, because it's in my hand. It's different than when I throw it. That's what he's teaching you. Then why does it have to be within 3 of the first half? As long as I'm let's say there's the first half of what I brought out, and now I need a second half to be chayav. As long as I brought it within 3 of the ground, anywhere. So now I have 2 things that I put down. Why have to? So the answer is you're right. The halacha is Rava didn't need that. Of course you're chayav, as long as it's within 3 of the ground. Rava meant that even if it's not within 3 of the ground, let's say it's within 4 of the ground, but it's within 3 of the first item that was placed on the ground, so it's attached to that item. And since that item is resting, so this is resting on top of that item, so it becomes one item, and you're chayav. That's what he was trying to tell you.
So it's not about the airspace, it's about the closeness?
It's about the closeness, yes.
Not about the airspace.
Well, the closeness of the airspace. What do you mean?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's going to be also, like you said. Right?
Yeah, exactly. If you brought out 2 halves, in one concealment, one forgetting, chayav. In 2, someone said, you're playing with fire, you just brought out half. Ooh, I forgot it was Shabbat. I wouldn't have done that, that's chatzi, whatever it is. Then, he forgets again that it's Shabbat, and he brings it out the second half, you're patur. Okay? Because the halamot, the concealments, since it's 2 separate ones, that breaks up the act into 2 separate acts. Rabbi Yossi Omer behelam echad b'reshut echad chayav b'shtei reshuyot. If you do it into 1 reshut, meaning to say, I bring out the first half of the fig into 1 reshut rabim, and the second half of the fig into the same reshut rabim. Fine, that's in helamet you'll be chayav. But the shtei reshuyot. But if you bring it into 2 separate reshuyot, okay, patur.
2 separate areas.
2 separate domains. Okay?
And the domain is going to be defined by the 3?
Yeah. But now we're not going to that 3 shaila now. It's a separate question. We're talking about a case you actually put it down.
Yeah. Oh.
Forget that case with the 3. That's not the chidush. It happens to be you can always add that into the case. All the halachas of Eitzah can always come together. Yes, but the point over here is that the reshuyot differentiate. Just like the knowledge can differentiate, the reshuyot can differentiate, and they become 2 separate actions, and you're patur. Omar Rabbi Moshe Yesh chiyuv chatat b'nei. That's only if the 2 areas of Reshut Rabim had a area between them that was chiyuv chatat. What does that mean? Which means they had a reshut hayachid, a private domain in between the two reshut hayabims. Which means if you would have carried from one reshut hayabim into the reshut hayachid, you'd be chayav chatat. Then the two reshut hayabims are considered two different ones. So if I carry from my house into one reshut hayabim, and then I carry from my house into the other reshut hayabim, right? I'm in my house. I have a road here to the right, a road here to the left. Both of them are public domains. If I put half a fig in here, I walk here and I put half a fig. Then I walk here and I put another half a fig. Patur. Says Rava, that's what Rabbi Yossi said. Says Rava, Rabbi Yossi is only if there is another third middle road between the right and the left, which you would be chayav chatat if you would carry from Reshut Rabim into this middle domain, and from this Reshut Rabim into the middle domain. So then we consider the two Reshut Rabim as separate domains, and since I only completed the malacha of two half figs into two separate domains, it's like two different actions that I can't join them together to be chayav chatat. It's not a malacha. Aval karmelit, but if there's a karmelit, which is not a private domain, which is doraita. You remember a karmelit was an area that was only astur to carry in and out of Reshut Yachid Reshut Rabim to it midirabanan. They gave it, right? Because it's not a real Reshut Rabim and it's not a real Reshut Yachid, so they gave it midirabanan. They said it's asur lo. That won't divide the two Reshut Rabims. Because midoraita, right? Midoraita, the karmelit is not a Reshut Rabim. Okay? And it's not considered a interpose, a hefstit between the two rishiyot. Abaya Omer afilu karmelit. Avo pislalei. Abaya says karmelit will differentiate between the two, but a pisla, a big log of wood, won't do that. Okay? So the Rava Omer afilu pisla. And Rava says, so we have Rabbah, then we have Abaya, then we have Rava. Rava says even a log of wood that fills up the whole width of the Reshut Rabim, now we consider the two sides of the Reshut Rabim as separate domains, and you'll be patur according to Rabbi Yossi. The Azda Rava l'Tamei, Rava goes according to his reading. The Amar Rava, Reshut Shabbat Reshut Gitin Dam. That the Reshut of Shabbat are exactly like the Reshut of Gitin. Gitin means divorce contracts. What happens if a husband lends his wife an area in his yard for her to be able to acquire the get? Okay? What happened was the get rolled and it landed on this log of wood. And if the log of wood was so tall, was so higher that it was 4x4 and it was 10 tefachim high, so she's not divorced. Why? Because this pisla, this log of wood, is considered a separate domain. And her husband only gave her one area. He said, look, that area right there is yours. So when I give you the get, you need to acquire it. She's not there, she's whatever. So I'm going to put it there, that's your area. So now your area, your chutzner, can acquire things for you. But in that area, inside that area, this is the area that he said this, you can use that, whatever. There's a big log of wood. When he threw it, it landed on top. So that's not what he gave her, because he only gave her one area. And this has cordon itself. It's to its own. It's separated. It's its own area because it's 4x4 tefachim and 10 tefachim high. Therefore, she's not migureshet. Okay. Therefore, Rava said the same halacha applies to Shabbat. Shabbat's domains are exactly like Gittin, and therefore, since the Pisla is its own domain, so for Shabbat also it's its own domain, and therefore it separates the two Rishiyot to be two separate Rishiyot. I really gotta go. We have to make another shiur this week. Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.